and welcome back to Comic Book Blueprint, where I take my comic Death's Favorite Daughter, available now on Webtoons, and show you step by step how I create the story, characters, and artwork without hiding anything or worrying about spoilers. This series is a look under the hood on how to make comics or any other sequential art, and today we're diving in how to color your comic. Full disclosure, I'm not the best at coloring or painting. A lot of what I am about to say has been stolen or borrowed from artists way better than me, or graciously passed down by colleagues who suffered through trying to teach me the basics. So I might be wrong about some of this, but I do think the process that I've developed for comic coloring works better for me than my actual painting skills can, demonstrate. So hopefully this helps you too. Yeah, you'll learn something. This is great. It'll be fine. It's a good movie. It's a good video. Keep watching, please. Okay, now we're going to break down a scene from DFD Chapter 3. This is a moment where Eric, our cursed Sin Eater ex-priest, has just obliterated a demon and is holding another attack ready to go. From the start, I knew I wanted him standing in front of the church doors with the light of the morning pouring through because they've been fighting all night. It's a huge moment for Eric, especially since the last time we saw him, it looked like he was abandoning Efeldrin, our other main character, which you can learn more about in this video that'll pop up in the card. By the way, quick plug, if you want to read Eric's story and see the final product of all this work, you can read Death's Favorite Daughter chapters 1 and 2 on Webtoons right now. Chapter 3 is coming soon. I don't know when it's going to be released. It could already be out. You should go check, honestly, but make sure when you go to Webtoons to hit that subscribe button so you get notified when it is out and you have another chapter, because I'm planning on doing at least 5 chapters of this and maybe more if you guys like it. But anyway, self-promotion's over. Let's get to the tutorial. So first I'm going to go to Clip Studio Paint where I do the line work for the pages. The first step is to be sure that you're actually done with the inking process, as you don't want to have to come back and redo your color layers and go back and forth with the line work, especially if you're using 2 programs like I am, Clip Studio for the inking and Photoshop for the coloring. Take your time and get it done right. Okay, so now that I know that my line work is good, let's go ahead and fill in this line work. In Clip Studio Paint, there is a setting right here where you can set the layer as a reference layer. This just makes sure that the program knows where your lines are in reference to where the fill is going to go. Once I've done that, I'm going to select the Auto Selection tool, which is set to refer to reference layer, the reference layer we just made. And then I'm going to click outside of where I want the selection to be, rather than just clicking a bunch of places inside the line work. I just click the outside of it and then invert that selection, and then fill that area with a neutral color. I want to make sure that this layer has filled in all the areas that I want colored, so I modify the selection here and there with my lasso tool and use a brush here and there to make sure that it's right for the masking stage. You really don't want to accidentally color something that's supposed to be empty space, or something that should be colored can't get colored now because there's no fill. Essentially, think of this layer as the where I'm going to paint layer. You'll notice that I'm using masks already to remove some of the line work and the fill layers around the magic circle effect. I try to keep my layers and pages as flexible as possible so I can make changes like this whenever I need. This way, if I need to change the look of the composition of the page, it's super easy for me to do. With everything set up, I export the character line work, fill layers, and the magic circle effect all as separate PNG files so I can stack them up later in Photoshop. Oh yeah, and the background, I almost forgot. Not much is different about how I export the background, other than I often mask out the character art from the background so none of the background shows through. Now in Photoshop, I can organize my PNG files in the way that I want them to appear in this scene. You'll notice that in Photoshop, I've made several presets and templates for my panels. In every panel folder, I have a couple of subfolders that are for my characters that might appear in the scenes or appear the most often throughout the comic. I have one for each of the main characters, the main villain, and one of the demons that shows up a lot in this scene. His name's Demon. It's like Ramon, but he's a demon. Anyway, in the subfolders there are layers that I know the characters will have, so I don't have to make them over and over again. I highly suggest making a separate document with all of your presets in it, so that you can save a lot of time while making your comic and not have to redo and remake layer after layer that's just the same thing. And again, I know I'm kind of a nut when it comes to organization, and some of you may be looking at this like, oh, do I really have to do this when I want to make a comic? And usually I would say, no, you don't, you can do your own thing, but no. You should organize your stuff, because if you don't, I mean, it's really hard to find. There's so much that goes into a comic, especially one that has so many panels. This comic has about 60 panels, and I don't want to lose stuff. I don't want one line work to be labeled line work 3 when I'm working on panel 35. Who knows which goes together? You have to have order in the chaos. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm done ranting. Where was I? In Eric's subfolder, I have all of the layers that I will be using to make the flats. I'm going to copy the fill layer that we made in Clip Studio Paint and put it at the bottom of this stack of layers. All of these layers are clipped to this fill-in layer, meaning that anything we paint in them will not go outside the bounds that we have created in Clip Studio Paint. This means that we can go ahead and make the flat colors of this character. Now, again, in Photoshop, I've already saved all of the base colors for Eric and any other characters that I'm going to be painting a lot in the swatches tab under their own folders. This is another great way to save time and keep your characters consistent. And even if they're in different lighting scenarios, your base colors can be used to help you get started. And again, organize your stuff, please. Please, guys. I'm not joking. I can't tell you how much time this has saved me. I've done the math. It's just better. I said I was done ranting. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and use the lasso tool to mark where I want each of the colors to go on the piece, making sure that all of them are separated into their own layer. Once I'm happy with my selection, I make sure to lock the transparency so that I cannot draw outside the bounds of that layer. That way the skin color won't get into the coat color, and the coat color won't get into the hair, etc, etc. Again, more organization to save you time. I know it sounds like I'm just continuing on this rant even though I said I wasn't going to, but here we are. With that finished, I can just start the painting now. I like to start on the background colors, so I have a good idea of the mood and the lighting, so that when I get to paint the character, it doesn't clash. Now, when I'm painting the background, I use a lot of texture brushes on loud colors, and you don't necessarily have to do this, but this is just the kind of style that I like for this project. It really sets the tone for DFD, these loud, explosive, and highly textured backgrounds that just adds to the wild and craziness of the stuff that happens in this comic. But you may want to go with something that's a little more minimalistic, or maybe kind of soft and watercolory, or maybe muted, or even louder, or a solid color, or anything else. You know, play around, figure out what you want and what really defines the colors and the style of your comic. I use a hard brush to block in the lights and darks of the scene, and I try to keep it fairly simple, but this is kind of an epic scene, so I don't mind spending a little bit more time on it. The main idea is to not get obsessed with the piece to the point where it takes me 3 hours just to do one panel. There's a fine balance between quality and obsession. It's tough to learn that, especially when you're, deep in your work and you really start to get passionate about it. But hopefully you'll find out where that is, especially as this is probably not the only panel in your comic. You want to make sure that you have enough time to treat all of your panels equally. If your line work or inking looks different than what I'm demonstrating here, make sure to match your color style to whatever your inking is. If you need help with that, I have a video about inking that should pop up in the card right now, so you can just check that out if you want. I'd like to share more about how you pick your colors for the lights and the darks, but I'm not really good at coloring, so all I can say is don't use black and white. I know this might sound basic for some people, but for me, learning how to navigate the color wheel to find the perfect shading color and the perfect highlight color has been a challenge for quite some time, and thankfully this comic has pushed me to learn how to do that, but sometimes I still catch myself trying to use pure black or pure white to light a scene, and it's just not great. The quality just drops as soon as I do that. That's not to say to make every painting you do look like a bowl of candy, but it seriously will help make your artwork look more three-dimensional and professional if you use these colors rather than solid black or solid white. In this case, we're getting a lot of orange and yellow light from the magic effects, and we're even getting some of the lights from the open door behind Eric. But it's also still dark inside of the church that they're in, so I want to make sure to use some dark purples and reds for the shadows, and bright, vibrant oranges and yellows for the highlights, dropping the saturation of my brush so that the colors mix with whatever base colors they're going over top. When I'm creating panels, something I keep in mind is that each and every panel needs to flow into each other, because the reader will be scrolling through them on their phone, so I need to make sure that when I'm laying out my pages, I can see what colors are being used from one panel to the next, so that I can use that when I am shifting the scenes or conveying emotions or reactions from the characters. That's why I create these long documents in Photoshop that hold about 10 to 12 panels, so that I can adjust or tweak any details that I want to make sure that the story is as cohesive as possible, and the party of color and explosions and awesomeness never stops. Now, in normal print comics, this isn't completely necessary, but it would be a good idea to keep in mind the color theme from page to page. You can look at Pixar movies or even big cinematic movies like Blade Runner or Mad Max Fury Road or The Batman and see the color grading that they use to make the scenes or emotions pop. This is because color is a form of communication with the viewers, and finding the best color to communicate what the scene is about or what the characters are feeling or what is really happening in the background of your scene is a way to sell your scene without having to use dialogue or set pieces or even backgrounds in your story. So if you're like me and you like to find excuses to not draw or write what that character is feeling or thinking and just show rather than tell, study color grading. Once you're happy with the colors that you've laid down, your page is set and ready to go. Just make sure not to flatten any of your layers or delete any of your progress, just in case you notice something that you want to change or if the mood needs to shift as you add more panels to your comic. As a rule, I always leave the background layer open because for me, I find that I change the background the most. So overall, I'm pretty happy with how this panel turned out. I think it communicates what I was going for. Eric has this epic moment while the scene is still vibrant and exciting and totally flows with the rest of the panels that I have planned. Obviously, there's a lot of things that I didn't cover about coloring in this video, so like always, I'm going to encourage you to find your favorite comic book, graphic novel, or manga. No, wait, not manga. Manga doesn't have color. And study how that colorist makes their choices. How much the background colors influence the foreground, how much the characters are influenced by the lighting of the scene, and how the lighting is translated in their own style. And then go out and make your own style, taking things that you like from other artists as well as things that you like from your own work. Thank you so much for watching. We're almost done with this series, if you can believe it, but we still have one step left in the comic book making process. Lettering, a topic that is complex, convoluted, subjective like most art, and I am way underqualified to talk about it, but I'm gonna give it a shot next time on Comic Blueprint. But until then, thanks again for watching. Now go make something awesome. You may notice that the voiceover for this video sounds a little bit different. That's because I'm standing up. I hate it.